Welcome back. Today we'll be looking at Azure Service Bus Topics and subscriptions. We'll learn how to configure your topic, filter your subscriptions, and how to implement them in a web API and Azure functions. Start by logging into your Azure portal. From the search prompt, type Service Bus, and select it from the list of services. To create a new service bus, click the Create button. Select or create a new resource group. For this example, I'm going to create a new one and call it Service Bus Demo. Enter a namespace value. I will be using Media Library as my namespace. For your pricing tier, you must at least select Standard. This will give you the option to create topics and subscriptions. Next, click Review and Create. Then click Create. Once deployed, go to the resource. From the left-hand menu, under Entities, select Topics. Then, create a new topic. Give your new topic a name. Now click Create. Select your new topic. From the left-hand menu, select Shared Access Policies. Click Add to create a new policy. This policy is for your client application to send messages to the topic. Name the policy, check the Send checkbox and click Create. Now add a second policy. This will be used by your Azure functions to listen for messages sent to the topic from your client application. Give it a name, click the Listen checkbox and click Create. Now select one of your newly created policies. Here you can see the connection string values used by your client application and Azure functions. Now we are ready to add our subscriptions, so let's navigate back to our topic. Click the Add Subscription button. Give it a name and click Create. I will call this one Movies. You can see your subscriptions listed within the topic. Add another subscription, this one I will call Books. Select one of your subscriptions and take note of the Filters section. These are used to filter messages sent by your client application to your topic. Your client application can send additional parameters within the message to determine which subscription will receive the message. Without filters, all messages sent to the topic will be available in a subscription. I will demonstrate this later on in the video when we get to coding the client application and Azure functions. Messages currently held by your topic will be shown here. The message count will vary per subscription depending whether or not filters are configured. Now our service bus, topic and subscriptions have been created, we can start coding our client application and Azure functions. From Visual Studio, create a blank solution. I will name this Media Library. Firstly, I will add a class library project to contain models used by the client application and the Azure functions. I will add two classes, one called Movies. And the other called Books. Now we've created our shared models, we can go ahead and create the client application. Add a new ASP.NET Core Web API project to the solution. I will call this project Client. Enable Open API support to use Swagger for testing your API endpoints. Set this new project as your startup project, and add a reference to your shared model library. Let's quickly clean up the generated code. Change the endpoint from a get to a post, call it movies, and give it a parameter of class type movie. Now we need to configure the connection string to our topic. We will add this to our settings config file. Give the connection string a descriptive name. Switch to your Azure portal topic, and from the left-hand menu select Shared Access Policies. Select your send policy and copy the primary connection string. Switch back to your client application and paste the connection string into your app settings. Now let's go back and configure the endpoint. Create a variable to store the new app setting connection string. Now let's add a couple of NuGet packages. I'm going to install Newtonsoft and the Azure Service Bus package. First we will create our service bus client using our connection string variable. Then we create our sender object, passing in our topic name. Next we create a service bus message, passing in our serialized movie object. And finally, we can send our message. Now we can test our new endpoint. So add a breakpoint near the top of the function and run the application. Using the Swagger interface, execute the endpoint supplying some model data. When your breakpoint is hit, step through the code. If the current line being executed does not throw an exception, everything should be working fine. Switch to the Azure portal, select your topic and scroll down to your subscriptions. You should see that both subscriptions contain the message. This is because there is no filtering for the messages at the moment. Switch back to the client application and copy the movie's endpoint. Paste the code to create a new endpoint, name it Books and adjust the parameters and body to implement the Books model. Run the application again and execute the new Books endpoint with some model data. Switch to your Azure topic, and once again, both subscriptions contain identical messages. Before we look at adding filters to our subscriptions, let's look at how to clear these messages. To do this, select one of your subscriptions. From the left-hand menu, select Service Bus Explorer. Select Receive Mode, then click Receive Messages. From the right-hand panel, check Receive and Delete. Enter the number of messages you want to delete, and click Receive. You may need to do this a few times before the messages are cleared. Repeat this step for any remaining subscriptions. All messages have now been cleared. Now, we're ready to set up our filters. Select a subscription. Click Add Filter, then give your filter a name. Select Correlation Filter. You have the option to select a list of system keys, but I'm going to add a custom filter. I'll call the key media type with a value of books. Then click Save Changes. For the movie subscription, I'm going to use a sequel filter. Here you can use an expression to filter messages to the subscription. I will use media type equals movies, but you could use other media types or include different key pair values. Don't forget to click Save Changes. For these filters to work, we need to go back to our client application and make a couple of changes. We need to add the value key pairs defined in our filters to the application properties of our message object. Once these have been added, we can run the client application and test the endpoints again. Let's call the movie's endpoint. When we refresh our topic, we can see that the message has been filtered to the movie's subscription. Let's do the same for the book's endpoint. Refresh the topic, and we can see all messages have been filtered correctly. Now, let's start coding our Azure function listeners. Add a new project to the solution, and select Azure Functions as the project type. Give the project a descriptive name. Make sure you choose the Service Bus Topic Trigger option. Add the Newtonsoft NuGet library to the project. Then add a reference to the shared model project. You will also need to enable the solution to have multiple startup projects to include both the client and the Azure functions. Rename the default function to Movie. This function will trigger when messages are filtered to the movie subscription. Use your topic name for the topic parameter. The next parameter is for your subscription, so in this case I will use movies. Next we need to set up the connection string for the listeners, in the settings JSON file. Give the connection string a descriptive name. Switch to the Azure portal, and from the topic, go to Shared Access Policies, and select the Listen policy. Copy the primary connection string and paste it into your JSON settings. In the body of your function, implement try and catch blocks. Within the catch block, log the error, and throw. In the try block, deserialize the message body into a variable of class type, movie. Copy and paste the function, and rename any references to movie or movies, to book, and books, in the new function. Add breakpoints to both function, and run the application. First, let's call our movies endpoint. The message has been filtered to the movies subscription, and only the movies function is triggered. Let's do the same for the books endpoint. This time the message has been filtered to the books subscription, which triggers the books function. We can see from the Azure portal, all messages have been processed and cleared.